Welcome to Monday, October 28th, 2024. Your Day Weather Podcast brought to you by Converse County Tourism. Douglas and Glen Rock, Wyoming are bustling with action this holiday season. Plan your excursion, including fun activities, beautiful downtowns, and historic treasures. Learn more at conversecountytourism.com. Well, we finally got something to talk about. Over the course of the weekend, some high-level moisture began to stream into the region, as evidenced by a lot of the photos you'll see here in a moment, making for some beautiful sunrises and sunsets. This is all due to a big change going on in the western United States, the eastern Pacific, and the western United States. It's going to bring about a strong Pacific cold front pushing into the region. So what we're going to see is not necessarily what we'd call a Colorado low or Four Corners low. This whole event is all about positioning and timing of when the cold air, the moisture, and strong jet stream winds all kind of converge at once is where the heaviest precipitation is going to fall. And it's going to be in a southwest to northeast band. If you're directly under that, you're going to get significant moisture and significant winter weather. If you're on the edges, well, you'll be on the edges and you won't get as much. And that axis of moisture, the combination of things could wiggle a little bit back and forth. This will bring certainly travel impacts to hunters and travelers. You'll see here in a moment where we're going to see significant snow in the mountains of Utah, Colorado, Wyoming, and other surrounding western states, so hunters be advised. Now, the pattern's going to stay active. There's a lot of disagreement in the models after this system, so kind of stay tuned, but the weather's going to stay busy as we get into the weekend, as we get into election week and beyond. Beautiful photos coming in. We have a lot of high-level moisture, winds aloft increasing. We're getting more lenticular clouds, and that is making for some wonderful photo opportunities, whether it's sunrise and lander, or even during the day, as you can see there in Lovell with that high-level moisture coming on in, but just beautiful opportunities for a lot of color in the clouds across the region this weekend, from Nebraska to Wyoming and all places in between. And yes, another great shot from Jan Curtis of Comet A3 as it continues to climb higher and higher and gets a little bit more, well, just fading away very slowly here in the coming days. A lot of this going on across the region, trying to get harvest in before the weather changes. Good opportunity for really another good day for harvest opportunities before things really begin to change. Now, throughout the west, you see all that purple there? The purple indicates winter storm watches. The pink, winter storm warnings. This pink and brown here due to red flag warnings and advisories for very high fire danger. But you can see in this whole area right here, there's going to be significant winter weather with this Pacific front. And to focus in on Wyoming, those are the areas where you see the blue shading. Now, keep in mind, it doesn't mean there won't be winter weather in areas that don't have this. But this is where the current watches and advisories and warnings are out for winter weather. Notice the Black Hills of South Dakota and Wyoming have a winter storm watch in effect. That's an area that I think is really going to be impacted. We'll show you that here in a second. The satellite imagery this morning doesn't look like much. It really doesn't. But as we'll show you here in a minute, it's the alignment of several weather variables working together to get things going. Here's the lenticular clouds forming along in east of the Continental Divide as that moisture comes over. What we have here, you see this? There is a connection. We talked about that dissipating hurricane in the Pacific. There is some connection to that moisture from the remains of that hurricane getting drawn into the western United States. The trough of low pressure and the real cold air is back here. So it really doesn't look like much. And this, well, this looks a little more interesting, but a lot of this is just high-level moisture. This is going to get added with this. You can see it a little bit better on the water vapor. The water vapor loop shows the deeper moisture coming up here. And here's moisture, but also cold air coming in with the trough coming in from the northwest. So there's a merger, so to speak, of these different elements coming together. And where you are, where they come together, is going to dictate what's going to happen with the precipitation. So as of 6 a.m. this morning, that trough coming into Oregon and Washington, the moisture we showed you on the satellite imagery is forming right along this wind gradient aloft here, this pressure gradient between the high and the low here. That's moisture streaming in. Cold air is coming in behind this trough like this. This is where we're going to be by noon tomorrow. The upper level low is going to be about near Salt Lake City. So you can see it pushing in. And that moisture and the cold air from the Pacific Northwest will come over and into basically that cold air slips underneath that warmer, moist air coming in aloft. And there's basically a collision coming together. The winds aloft this morning, you can see strong winds aloft at 300 millibars at 30,000 feet. On the front side of this trough and on the back side. This wind here will help draw the trough south. This will help take that moisture and push it northeast. And so what ends up happening is we have a strong temperature gradient aligning from the southwest to the northeast. Now this is by 6 p.m. Mountain Time tomorrow. These numbers here, this is called a thickness chart. What I want you to realize or take note here of is the warmer looking temperatures, warmer looking colors are warmer temperatures, and the higher numbers represent warmer temperatures. The lower numbers represent colder temperatures. So there's a real tight gradient between the cold and the warm going on basically in the southwest to northeast axis, just like this, by 6 p.m. tomorrow. So it's pretty darn warm down here on the plains. It is a whole lot colder in Montana and parts of the Northwest Rockies. In between, the strong jet stream winds aloft are streaking over through on top of it. So there's the cold air gradient at the bottom, and there you can see the temperature anomaly by 6 p.m. tomorrow. There's the cold. The center of it is right there. The better moisture, the precipitable water, is lining up right on top, right over where that stronger temperature gradient is. Then on top of that, there's the strong winds aloft that we showed you moving overhead by Tuesday morning and throughout the day Tuesday. Strong jet stream winds aloft will be right over here. And notice everything is aligning from the southwest to the northeast. The winds aloft, the precipitation, and the temperature gradient. And that's where you're going to see the axis of the heavier moisture. So this is where it all is coming together. The strongest is right along this line, and on either side of the line is where the heavier axis of moisture will be. The strong winds aloft will drive heavy snow into the mountains of southwest Colorado. Underneath this axis right here is where we're going to have the heaviest snowfall, and that's where you're going to have the biggest travel impacts. So if you're in that boundary right there, you're going to get the most winter weather. The most rain, then snow, and the coldest, most unsettled weather. Just outside of this oval I showed you, you're on the edges. So you're on the edge here, and you're going to be on the edge right here. But if you're underneath everything. Now, keep in mind, all of this could move a little more north, or it could move a little bit more south. But I think this persistent area right here, where just the best lining up of everything coming together, will be in place. Now, once the jet stream winds move away from that area, this area will dissipate rapidly and head off to the east. So it's not an upslope storm. It's not a four corners low. It's a combination of things working together. And there's where your snowfall is most likely going to be. I think the Black Hills will see their first significant snow of the season. And again, there's that axis right there. But the mountains, all the mountain ranges, are going to get into a good southwest flow aloft where there's good moisture to be able to bring in some significant high country snow to the area. Now, by Thursday morning, by Halloween morning, that low really weakens and heads off to the northeast, so the precipitation will weaken. Now, there's a lot of disagreement on what happens with this guy. So this is the next weather maker. It could slide just like this. It could slide all the way down into here. Don't know yet. But this is going to end up being a player in our forecast later on. Certainly, it's going to bring more wet, cold weather to the Pacific Northwest. By Sunday, the European model wants to take it and push it all the way down to the south and have it settle into the southwestern United States by the weekend. And by election week, this system may actually curve back north, and there may be a little bit of a merger of this system with this system. So stay tuned, but certainly with the high in the Pacific, eastern Pacific now, lows are going to be able to come into the west. It just depends on where they go and how they go afterwards. This is by Monday. This next low coming on in, and that southwestern United States low, again, there may be a little bit of these two coming together around Tuesday and Wednesday of next week. So There's a lot more to talk about. Also to talk about this, we do have a geomagnetic storm. There was another coronal mass ejection that hit Earth last night. However, with all the weather coming on through, I don't think we're going to have an opportunity to see any auroras, at least here for the next couple of nights. Have yourself a good Monday. We'll see you tomorrow.